recording. There we go. Screen share. This. You all see the PowerPoint now?
Yep.
All right. Just position, just the microphone. We're going to talk about trailer systems and components. There we go. So we'll talk about a large variety. There is so much stuff out there. And the more you work on, I agree, when you work on a tire at a tire shop, you're going to see so much different variety with all of this. I have to wear my headphones. Kind of funny because they're hurting my ears. You're going to see all different kinds of variety. Here is a pretty basic setup of a trailer. You'll see a high boy trailer hauling cargo, some big picker on it so that it can load itself and unload. Fairly simple. Low boy trailer with a gooseneck. These are just terms that you'll hear around the shop. And, you know, bring that low boy in, and this will typically be what you'll using. They haul different things. That's the idea behind this, right? Something like that. That previous one will. This can haul like wood. You know, something that isn't too heavy. That if it gets a really high upload up here, not a big deal. Whereas something like this, something that's really heavy, high center of gravity, you're trying to avoid it, hauls the load a lot lower down. Something like this, right? You wouldn't want to put this on a high boy. I mean, could you? Yeah, sure, it could go on top of there, but it's going to be a lot less stable. So it's all about that center of gravity, lowering it down. If you work around the city or in something that has pickup and delivery, you might get a van trailer, and then there's different types of van trailers too, and they're going to weigh different amounts depending on if it's heated or cooled, refrigerated, or all the different types that there are. Okay, refrigerated one, so temperature controlled. You can also get these that need to be heated, so special circumstances. So similar idea, they're going to have some sort of power unit on here that is going to be driving the refrigeration unit. And interestingly, refrigeration is going to be something that's coming in the new program. So it's actually quite large. I mean, if you think about it, hauling food around is it's one of the biggest transportation, like bulk transportation needs that we have. Food and fuel. So liquids and different solids, and then temperature controlled ones are really important. So where I come from in the city, lots and lots and lots of reefer units, right? So when somebody calls the shop and asks if anyone there does reefer, they might not be talking about the thing that just recently was legalized just almost a year ago now. So different kind of reefer. They're probably wondering if you service these units or have a technician who knows about refrigeration systems. So my favorite, cattle liners. So this is typically a large, medium to large livestock hauler. So it's see a little bit of a different setup when it came to hauling things like chickens. Not very fun to work on. They're covered in all different kinds of all right, I'm getting nice, a different log kit trailer setup. So I'll people send me pictures. That's good. I like pictures and videos. Please do send me stuff like that. Austin sent me a video that I will share with everyone. Sorry, I guess I didn't ask Austin if it's okay if I tell everyone it was him. But yeah, I'll if you send me things that are appropriate to share with the group, I absolutely will. So please, yeah, just like what Ryan did, showed us those pictures of the repairs he did. And I think someone showed us the other day that bearing removal that they were doing on their wife's vehicle. Like, that's great. That's what this is all about. And even in class, I would have done that. I would tell you the same thing. Send me pictures, send me videos. If they're good and we can learn something from them, something that maybe not everyone's seen, we'll absolutely take a look at it. So livestock ban. If you have somebody, I don't know if I told you this, but if there's someone you work with who tends to talk a lot and not work really quickly, put them underneath of one of these things that are full, and I guarantee you they'll keep their mouth shut and work really fast. So when you're getting rained down upon, you tend to find what it takes to operate really quickly. So a couple of us probably have seen something like this. Chip trailers, okay, can look like this. I worked on a few different bulk carriers. Different versions of it might have, so like a Super B configuration of this. You can have that push through, like I believe Excel still has, so the chips will push directly through, and that's because you have this. So this is probably what.
Hey, look at that. It's a picture of a truck from the company I work for.
Nice. That's
I
awesome.
actually just watched a video about this.
They're pretty cool, hey? So you'll notice a few things about this. The tractor that's attached to it is just a day cab, because you wouldn't want to forget your coffee cup in here while this is happening. You'll have a heck of a mess to clean up after. And if you did have something like a sleeper in there, it'd cause a heck of a ruckus with all of your stuff.
Maybe I should ask my boss for some pictures of a couple of these ones crumpling, where like it gives way and they like crash.
That would be great. I'd love to see that. Anything you guys have, that's what I'll keep on putting in and showing other groups. So a few different tank types of configurations. Okay, so this one on the right here might end up actually holding like a powder, like concrete, typically something you'll see in there. And then this one on the left can haul liquids of any different type. So fuel is something we'll probably very associated with. All the things from like molten sulfur, and bitumen, and I mean different varieties of tanks. Not necessarily trailers, but tanker trucks is that you haul milk and water and all different kinds of liquids, okay? End dumps, and this is what I think it was Ryan who was saying wheelers are the worst. There's a type of end dump you're talking about that lift the wheels all the way in the air with the body, right? That's the ones you were talking about?
Yeah, they're bin trailers for fracking sites. Like they hold all the silica sand and they stand them straight up and then fill them up with sand.
Gotcha. So they're more like those bulk carriers, right? Rather than like a heavy gravel box.
Yeah, you'll never be able to see the wheels because they're hidden by a giant, like 14-inch frame channel or frame I-beam that goes around the outside of the wheels, because the suspension is attached to the main body instead of the frame.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've heard about those ones too. I've actually have never had the fortune to see them, but I've heard about them. So end dumps typically does something like this. What you'll haul like gravel, sand, and maybe not sand, but gravel, bigger rocks, dirt, things like that. And you can see up top here, this is the tarps that you'll have that'll actually extend over the length here. When it comes to some of these other ones, these are going to have tarps. This particular tarp probably runs the length of the trailer and it rolls over in that direction too. These are some of the things where I was talking about getting a man lift versus doing it with a ladder. So it is definitely advantageous and a lot quicker. Someone just sent a picture too of one of these trailers getting, oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. One of these trailers getting sectioned and repaired, I'd imagine from crumple damage or something like that. So
if you told me yesterday that they unload those trailers like that without the picture, I wouldn't have believed you.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you all kinds of things you won't believe, and only half of it's true. So it'll be up to you to decide what's real and not. I'm just kidding. Most of the things I'm going to try and tell you are going to be very honest and help you along. But yeah, that is how they do that.
Nice truck.
What's that?
So that's a nice truck.
That's a nice truck. Yeah, a good old Ford, it looks like. Maybe a Peterbilt.
Definitely Ford.
It's a Ford, right? Yeah, I can see because the way the intake works here. Looks like that'd be a Ford. So bottom dump trailers, typically you'll see these hauling grain, stuff like that. All of these trailers designed for different things. You wouldn't want, well, I've seen people do it, but you wouldn't want to load this up with gravel because you could fill it way too full very easily. You're going to be hauling something really heavy. You have something that's designed a lot differently with a lot thicker frame rails. So as opposed to these flimsy little box channels here, you'd probably want something like this with a really nice thick frame rails on here. And this is gonna, you can see the thicker corrugated steel, that's gonna support something like gravel. And it's also a lot smaller. You can't load this one as much as something like this up. And I mean, even worse, if you filled something like this, an aluminum side, or even this one, a tin side, if you filled this all the way up with gravel, good God, you'd be so, so heavy. So, I mean, different trailers for different applications, right? I worked on units just like this, or units like this one here, but they hauled garbage, bulk garbage in Edmonton from local dumps or garbage dumps to different transfer stations. That was a very, very dirty job. So just like this one, some of them unloaded, just like this one too, to incinerators and stuff like that. So really dirty job. Just like working on these can be a very dirty job. Some people will take care of them too. Like, you can't throw everybody under the bus. Lots of companies and stuff do have okay maintenance programs, and they do try to keep these clean. They understand that it makes everyone's life easier, job easier, happy worker works better. So jobs go quicker if things are clean, right? Oh, I'm pushing the way wrong button. There we go. So someone sent a similar picture to this. They sent a Super Beast setup that hauling logs, so different logging trailers. You'll see different varieties of setups for different trailers where you'll have the actual body of the trailer like this, and it's going to haul pipes, different length of pipes. I'd imagine those coil trailers is probably what someone was talking about as well. So there's, yet again, if money is no obstacle, anything can be made. These are what I was talking about by extendable deck trailers. So you'll have one similar to this, and they're going to be designed to haul different size cargo containers. This particular one's going to be for different sizes of machinery, okay, different sizes of equipment, possibly different lengths, different boom lengths that'll have to load up on the back, and they just need to distribute the weight and a little bit more room differently. Now take a look at that frame rail. Now that's a monster. So heavy hauling exists as well. This is why our roads are in such amazing condition largely. The potholes come from winter. The really big divots in the road come from all the weight that they're hauling constantly. And I mean, yeah, you get a permit for the road, but the permit doesn't mean that the wear doesn't occur, okay? When you're overloading it or putting really high loads, then I mean, all of those axles on there, they're all there to try and distribute the load differently, evenly, and keep it within the limits of the road. But still, constantly putting the road right to its limit is going to cause wear. Get it to work.
Yeah, I was gonna say save up time for those trailers, all those wheels.
Yep. I hope so in Edmonton, these are very common. So I lived in Redwater and worked in Edmonton. That's on the road to Fort McMurray. And so we did CVIP these. They wouldn't fit in the shop. So they'd come as a unit, essentially one unit like this here has one VIN number. And then this one might be a separate unit with a separate VIN number. So two separate CVIPs. They could also be one large unit. It depends on who manufactured it and how they got a serial number for it. So.
And I'm assuming every single tire had a brake.
Yes and no. Oops. Not a fun time to drive over something and get a flat tire. Now, something interesting about this is the nut engagement on that too. I always wondered about this. So I've traveled around, and all over the place where I've traveled, I've seen wheels attached with nut engagement like this. Now here, we do require a certain amount of thread protrusion from the nut in order for it to have, just sort of like this image down at the bottom here. Can you all see my cursor when I'm sharing the screen like this?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, this one down here, you see how threads are coming out? There is a certain number of threads that do need to protrude. Now, more often than not, the way you don't have to think about something like this. It happens because of the design of the studs you're using. So unless you're doing something like switching from steels to aluminums, then it could change that. Other than that, it's going to be okay. But
Those nuts,
yeah,
those nuts probably have a collar that goes in between the hole in the wheel and the threads. Like the threads of the nut will extend significantly below the actual turning washer on that nut,
gotcha.
and that
So
might be how they're getting away with it.
gotcha. So it's almost like a stud piloted, where the threads are going into this small gap here and piloting the hub that way. And so they're getting more engagement than what it actually looks like on the surface here.
Dual piloted.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it would have a flange and the whatever goes inside of there, right? That thread going in. Other than the flooding around areas in the city, you do see units that are hauling 3 trailers.
Like 100 feet, 150 feet.
It depends what they're hauling and where they're going as to whether they can or can't do that. Largely where I've seen that, hauling numerous trailers like that around here is, for instance, near Edmonton, you would, where they have major centers around there, so like St. Albert, Stony's Plain, Spruce Grove, Beaumont, Devon, all Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, all of those larger cities or small cities around Edmonton. They have Walmarts, they have superstores, they have all of those larger stores as well. And so when they're hauling from the distribution centers in Edmonton out to those areas, that's where you would typically see they have 3 trailers constantly, or up to 3 all the time. So different applications going in different places, hauling different loads. That's all the things you have to take into account with this. And depending on where you work, you could see so much different stuff. So.
Holy.
It's like a train.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's a train on a highway right there.
So in Australia, where it's very flat, they do have what they call land trains, and they can get very, very, very long.
Yeah, I've seen Australia.
Up here, we can't necessarily do that because of the long distances. The farther you end up going, the more hills you end up having to encounter. And that's going to be the big downfall of that. So hills, okay. We've all probably seen those units crawling up the Dunvegan. So
They're mostly for flat and desert.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, any flat deserty areas. So you might have seen some overseas wherever you were, Ali, because we tend to not have so much flat deserty area here, but there is other places around the world that do, where you can have that kind of stuff. And then there's some that have crazier mountains than we do. So
yeah, pretty much overseas. There are a lot of strange stuff that we don't see it here.
Yes, there is.
It is common over there, but just because we don't see them, it's uncommon here.
Exactly. It all depends on what you've seen. So, and something that is common here isn't common there either, right? It just
No, yeah, it is actually. That's the
that
true
there.
logic beyond everything. You just follow the rule of the aspect or aspect that you have it here, but it's not exists over there. So when we do the wheel seal here, we don't have it there. We just put the whole grease inside, and that's it, and close the cap, and that's it.
Yeah. You do what you got to do, really, right?
You bet.
All right, so vehicle ground pressure. What we were talking about there with all the different wheels added on is you can only have a certain amount of ground pressure exerted on the road. There's limits on that. When you hear that the road's being limited in spring and fall, it's because different road conditions are leading to, if you have too high of a ground pressure, you're going to break the road apart, and then it's going to cause problems for people. So depending on tire contact area is going to depend on your ground pressure. So you want to start hauling bigger loads, you add another axle. Pony trailer, a truck and a pony trailer. So this is a truck that has a van body on it or a body job, and then it has some sort of pintle hitch coupler hooked up to a pony trailer. So here's a common configuration that you would see set up as a dump truck and a pony dump trailer. So it's pretty common. So then you could have a truck and a full trailer. So the difference between these two is this trailer has its own turntable here, and it is a full-size trailer. It's not a small trailer. I've often seen these in gravel dumps and stuff like that. So it'll still be attached with a drawbar and a pintle hook. Then it just has its own point of pivot, as opposed to this one where it only pivots right here at the pintle. Okay, there is no additional turntable here, and you can get this in a tandem and tridem configurations as well. It's a really, really large bearing inside of here. That's what it is.
I got to help change one once at Maximum on the quad wagon trailers.
Oh yeah.
There's about 80 bolts that hold them on, from like 40 on the top and 40 on the bottom.
Yeah, they're like really, really big. I'm not far enough away from the camera. They're really, really, really big bearing. You got to grease them too, so that's another grease point to be aware of, depending on what you're servicing, right? There's lots of common grease points that we all are aware of, but sometimes depending on application, you know, like rollers on a deck or turntables on a full trailer like that. So things to be aware of would need lubrication and maintenance. So here we have a different configuration too. So there'll be a turntable in here. So body loaded end dump and a full trailer combination. So you can just see it's a full trailer rather than being this smaller pony trailer here. Semi-truck, semi-trailer. So we have a tractor. I keep saying a highway tractor. This is what I'm referring to, is typically a tandem, a twin drive configuration. You can get tri-drive configurations as well, but it's going to have a fifth wheel plate on it for connecting to some sort of semi-trailer. Now, if you have a tractor, that most likely this would be a tridem before you wouldn't necessarily have a tandem doing something like this. You'd have a tri-drive already, because heavy weight, more wheels, more drive axles to make you drive better. If you need to haul more weight, you just add more wheels. So what you can get is a Jeep and a booster. This is essentially just a low boy trailer, just like what I showed you in one of those first images with that piece of equipment on it. All they've done here is added a separate fifth wheel pin and coupler with another wheel assembly. And then on the rear is one more, possibly even two more wheels that will help take some of the weight off the rear. This is something you can do hauling large weight. So Jeep goes in between the tractor and the trailer, and you boost it from the rear. An A-train configuration. So you have one full semi-trailer, and this has a hook on the back. Typically, you'll see something like this in vans. This is how they get those 3 trailers, full-size van trailers, to haul cargo to Walmart around the city. You'll usually see it with an A train configuration. So one hook, one pintle hitch. It has a 5th wheel on it. It has its own separate air system in it. So it's essentially its own separate trailer. It has its own VIN number on it. So you'll have the tractor was one trailer. This semi-trailer is one. The converter dolly is another separate unit with its own CVIP and VIN. Same thing with this following semi-trailer. It'll be its own separate unit with its own VIN number. And then all they would do is this following semi would also have a pintle hook on it, and you'd get another converter dolly and another full trailer. So another 2 separate VIN numbers, license plates, all that good stuff. Separate air systems and everything.
Kind of like a booster or Jeep.
So the boosters and Jeeps, interesting point. The boosters and Jeeps, typically this is all one VIN number. If you get any separation in it, you'll usually see it between the Jeep and the lowboy. And the reason that is because the booster usually can't be driven on its own. You can't take this tractor and hook it up to the booster and go drive away. It's dependent on being connected to the rest of the lowboy trailer. Okay, it actually.
All of ours have their own VIN and part number, and we have to CVIP them all separately.
For all 3 components?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, cool. And yet again, it's going to be dependent on how they're manufactured and how that manufacturer went to the registries with it. So there's places that build custom trailers, and I'm not sure where your lowboy trailer came from. It might have been locally manufactured. Like Edmonton Trailer makes custom trailers for heavy hauling, and they would be able to customize a lowboy trailer to have a Jeep and a booster on it. And then it would just depend on how you move forward with registration based on that. Like I said, you most certainly will see it different, if there is one, most of the time between the Jeep and the lowboy. But yeah, sometimes
I think it's because we switch them around. So if one truck takes a booster, and then we'll have to use the booster for a different unit and stuff like that. Like we don't use it. We can interchange them for different weights and stuff, because some boosters are different than others.
Gotcha. So that could very well be it. In some setups, this unit can only work, or is only supposed to work with this unit, ideally. And so it's considered.
Yeah, like the one in the picture looks like it would probably be just part of another truck and have the CVIP with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it most likely would be one unit with this. Some of them might not even unattach. It might even just flip out of the way. Different beaver tail and flip decks might have that as well. Different ways they can do that. You might even have a deck lowboy, so it'd have a different kind of deck on here and a different type of deck on the back. And the back, maybe even this 3rd axle might flip down. It might even have a different 4th axle. And then there's also, you can get tag axles and lift axles, and we'll talk about that in the air systems as well. So yeah, this is definitely its own unit. I used to work at a dealership, and we would get converter dollies in, and you could fit 12 of them in one bay. And then when you would do a CVIP, you would just get all 12 pieces of paperwork filled out, one on every unit, and then you just go around, all right, I'm going to go and check 12 5th wheels. And if one was out of adjustment, you'd mark it down on the corresponding paperwork for that one. And you'd finish all of them, checking PDIs, basically making sure everything works, connected properly, airlines aren't backwards, things like that. And then doing all the measurements for everything, right? You go around and you measure all the brakes at once. You measure all the pintle eyes at once. You do all the lights, do one trailer at a time, right? Make a big assembly line out of it. And then it goes really quick.
Yeah, I do that with the Jeeps. I've done that with Jeeps.
Yeah, you can just put a lot of them in the bay, and then you go around with your tire gauge, and rather than checking one trailer, you start and walk around, do all of them, write it all down at the same time, and then move on to the next task, right?
Rosano had a tandem axle converter, and one axle was pilot mount and the other axle was demountable, like Dayton wheels.
Yep, I've seen things like that before too. And I mean, as long as it's each axle, it's should be okay. And it's about weight rating as well too. If it's within the weight range and they're rated for the correct size, I mean, the wheel end on there, as long as it's by each axle and the braking force is equal, it should be good. I've seen all kinds of weird things put together. So our A-train articulation points, you have the first tractor with the fifth wheel has its one. Then there's going to be two at the back here, one at the pintle and one at the converter dolly fifth wheel. And yet again, if you added another train on here too, one would be at the pintle and one at the train, or at the converter dolly fifth wheel. So I bet some of you have seen chip trailers like this or something similar to this. These are just like those bulker garbage haulers that I was talking about. And they'd come in a B train configuration or a super B, they call them too. From what I understand, the difference between a B train and a super B is the amount of wheels here.
Super B has a Tridem on the bridge.
Yes, so this is a super B. And this would be a B train.
King B is Tridem.
And then, yeah, I was waiting. So you know, where is my button?
What's a Royal Bee?
A Royal B? I don't know.
Quads.
Quads?
I'm
No.
just joking.
Yeah, I don't know.
So is I.
So King B then, triple on the back, triple on the bridge. Okay. Yet again, if someone said, if you're a yard, you know, it's like, hey, there's that B train out there. It's a bulker, or there's the van B train out there. Go bring it in. You know, you'd ask, oh, well, what company is it for? Well, it's from Whitecourt Transport. Oh, okay, I'll bring that one in, rather than, you know, this one that's from, I don't know, Rosno or something, right? Like, that's a different, a B train, we could call any of these a B train and we would have an idea of what's going on, because the main idea is there is a bridge here. So you termed it correctly. This is called the bridge. What we're gonna have, instead of having a converter dolly that comes off a pintle hook, we're gonna have a separate subsection. Instead of the frame just on like a semi-trailer, like how we just have one semi-trailer with the wheel assembly all underneath, this one is going to extend out from the rear. And so it still has its own wheel assemblies and it's still holding up its weight. It's just going to have extension on the frame. And on that extension is a fifth wheel plate. That fifth wheel plate can hook up to a following semi-trailer, okay? And all different kinds of configurations. There are two separate units. They're gonna have two separate VIN numbers, two separate CVIs. You do need to separate all of these units to do the inspections. B trains are very common where people say they just leave them together, but you can't, you need to check wear on fifth wheels and pins, and unless it's so bad that you can see it, which we will definitely look at once we talk about fifth wheel couplers next week. Yeah, we need to separate them in order to inspect them properly.
We use our B train to haul our weights for the cranes we got. Like the only thing that'll work for them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, crane weights can be quite expensive, right?
And really heavy.
What did I say, expensive? That's what I meant, is heavy. Yeah, they can be really big in all aspects, but yeah, very, very heavy. So steel, mild steel, 1 cubic inch, or 1 cubic foot of mild steel, as far as I remember. So 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot weighs like 400 pounds. As far as the last time I looked into it, I'm pretty sure. So it's really, really, really heavy if you start getting steel.
Yeah, it's funny because the weights look so small in the trailer, but they're like 20 ton, like they're huge. Like they're like they just weigh huge, but they look so small. It's messed up.
Yeah. There's the reason why axles aren't solid tubes of steel, because you'd never be able to drive it down the road with that much unsprung weight on there. They'd weigh so much. They're hollow tubes for that reason. So steel is quite heavy.
When I was at Maximum, when we did our tank inspections on our fiberglass tanks, we actually had to take the bolster plate, like the fifth wheel plate, the whole thing right off so that they could look for cracks underneath.
Yep, you absolutely do. So yep, we when we worked on Super B tankers, and part of the inspection, you actually have to take the bolster plate off and drop it down in order to find out any cracks inside of the couplers. Another type of, so we've talked about A trains, B trains, and the last one, C train. So a C train also has a converter dolly, just like the A train. All the C train is doing is, I like to think of it as it's turning a regular loaded semi-trailer into a B train, because it adds this C-shaped converter dolly onto the back, which does not have a pivot point. So it's very similar to how a B train will be. There's no pivot point here, only at this fifth wheel and then at the rear fifth wheel on the converter dolly. And this converter dolly as well, just like the other ones, it'll have its own registration, VIN number, and all that good stuff. So
The fun part of it is greasing, unless you're lucky that it has a auto grease.
and as long as the auto grease is working as well. So
I wonder if they can be installed a wet kit on this conveyor, so that will be easy without, or they cross hauling like the fuel and van.
oh, so like one trailer could be a tanker and one could be a van, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know if they're allowed to, if they can pass this skill.
Oh, I mean, they probably could, as long as each trailer is within the weights. It's all about how they distribute the load, right? With hooking up, as far as that's concerned, you probably don't see it often, but it can happen. I mean, this could be a tank and this could be a van. It just depends on what you're hauling, and as long as you keep it within weights. This fifth wheel and this air system in this converter dolly should be universal to this semi-trailer, to this tractor, to this trailer. Okay, it's that's why you're here, is because we try to keep things the same all across Canada and the United States as well. Ideally, everything is regulated federally, and we're tightly interwoven with the United States. So I mean, you should ideally be able to hook any tractor up to any semi-trailer, and not saying it'll haul it well and fuel efficiently based on application, condition, right? All those things, but it should work. It should make the brakes work, it should release the brakes, should be able to apply the brakes. It should make the lights work, right? All of that stuff. So
Common combination I've seen is like a body job gravel truck, like an end dump, pulling a flat deck with like a backhoe on it.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just going to work, right? He unloads that trailer, which unloads that backhoe, who loads up the truck, they dump it somewhere, and then they're done their job digging a hole, hook back up, load back up, and away we go to the next job, right? So, and all of those track units should operate with each other because of the universality of our regulations when it comes to these things. And we'll get more into when it comes to air brakes. Sorry, go ahead.
I said it's because the truck they're built is so much versatile, and they can be hooked up to anything.
Yep. They try to make it that way. So this is what a C train will look like. You won't often see, yet again, it's going to depend on weights. They're not going to put all of these pintle hooks on something that is already at such a high weight that tractors would struggle hauling it. A lot of times you'll see on the back of a trailer that is capable of doing this, it's going to have 3 pintle hooks. It's going to have 1 in the middle and 2 on the outside, all right? Now, the way I tell the difference between them, a C converter dolly looks like a C, right? Can you all see that? I hope. And then an A train looks like an A. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so the B train then is just the one in the middle that has the 5th wheel that's extended from the first trailer. So this one doesn't have a converter dolly. The 5th wheel for the following trailer is attached to the lead trailer. That's how I tell the difference between them.
I sent you a picture of a B box that got kind of crushed by the A box when they were on the tipper.
I think that, yeah, you did. So I'll definitely share that with everybody. I've gotten a few. Actually, everybody's sending me stuff. So I'll go over that and I'll share this stuff with everyone. Holy crap. I've unleashed the floodgates, I think. So that's okay. I do like looking at this stuff. We'll finish this. We'll take some time to do the self-test, and I'll look through all this and put something together, and we can I'll take a look at the things, everything.
It's a real cool video.
You sent me a real cool video? Okay.
Of trucks.
I'll be the judge of that. All right. So yeah, a Jeep with a fixed axle configuration. Now what you can have, and some of you may have seen, is converter dollies, Jeeps, trailers that actually have steer axles on them. I've seen this when it comes to snow plows, and in the city, they bought a whole pile of snow plows that when they are plowing, they are actually driving 90 degrees perpendicular to the truck that is hauling them. So rather than having 2 trucks to do 2 lanes of road, they have 1 truck and this trailer to do 2 lanes of road, if that makes sense. The amount of wear that these trailers go through, I've never changed more kingpins in my life, and they are so difficult to do on these weird trailers. Because then that the trailer also has a tank on it to haul the calcium chloride liquid, and that's what they spray on the roads now. It is an absolute nightmare for working on. It is a disaster, but really neat to watch them do what they do. It's probably something you don't even believe that they do yet, but yet they drive, the trailer drives beside it. So it's jackknifing on purpose, and it has 2 axles that are steer axles. And yeah, they just steer this way, and then the trailer just goes and turns out and drives sideways beside the unit. And it's, yeah, very interesting. And the kingpins that I mean, I'm talking about steer axle kingpins. So the kingpins right in the axle here that allow the steering knuckle to rotate. Just like these ones here. So this would be the kingpin here, spindle, kingpin would go through this bore here, and these are exactly what they would look like. So this is the large kingpin here, and this is what you'd have to change. A little bit different now is they're actually not tapered like this, the ones that we were changing. And so they could come out from the top or from the bottom. And ultimately what we would end up doing is using the weight of the vehicle as sort of a press. And so you'd put a jack underneath here and you'd start lifting the entire unit up, and then you would force it back down with a few sledgehammers, and it would generally pop it loose. Or these also take the lance or the air arc, and you could gouge all the way through, straight through this without hitting the spindle or the bore on the axle, and then they'll drop right out with a few intimidating blows of the sledgehammer. So they do, Tiger Tool, actually, I think it's Tiger Tool, sells a hydraulic press kit that'll bolt on to this, or the steer axle of a tractor. It's the same idea, and it'll press it out hydraulically. So that worked well as well. They work good. Any questions?
For the same problem that you're talking about, the lumber truck company that I used to work, the owner just got pissed off and said, just disassemble all that tag axle, take it off, all 10 units one by one. We brought it to shop and just take it off. And
Oh my.
it's just the waste of the tires and a whole bunch, and the same headache, and just didn't work for them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we all, hopefully we learn from our mistakes, and hopefully management learns from their mistakes as well, or owner, operator, whoever decided they wanted to spend money doing that. So, all right, I'm gonna stop recording.